In today's video, I'm going to talk about analyzing your Venus in your horoscope as your wife. And Venus represents the wife in the chart. A lot of people tend to emphasize looking at the 7th house. And yes, the 7th house represents your wife and her physical existence. But your wife as a person that does things in your life, that makes your life better or makes your life worse, is Venus. Okay, now your wife as the thing she's going through, what she's like, what she's doing, sure, that's your 7th house. But what she's producing or not producing in your life begins with Venus. And most of the story is going to be shown by your Venus. If you have a good Venus, you get a wife that produces in your life the things that you want and need and hope a wife to produce. If you have a bad Venus, you get a wife that doesn't produce those things in your life. She might be great at lots of other things. She might be a world famous wife. But because she has a great 7th house you have a great 7th house and great yogas from your 7th house, and she might make lots of money. But is she producing what you need a woman to produce in your life? For that we have to start by analyzing Venus. And this is something a lot of astrologers don't pay enough attention to. I regularly get guys who've gone to an astrologer. And they say, oh, I'm going to have a great wife because of this. And I look at Venus, I'm like, not a chance. You know, this Venus is trash and you're never going to have a woman you're happy with. So we need to look at Venus. And we have to look at Venus in light of some very simple and accurate principles. And the stress is on the accurate. If you're using the wrong Navamsa, using wrong calculations, your Venus will change some dignities and some of the important Varga charts we're going to talk about. And then you're going to get the wrong picture of your life. Okay? On my website, vaultoftheheavens.com, VAULTOFTHEHEAVENS, so vaultoftheheavens.com, you can get a chart calculator that's going to calculate everything you need to do what I'm teaching you to do in this class here. And if you get a good idea, if you can read your Venus right in the important relationship-centered Vargas, you'll get a better picture of what some of the critical things are you can expect from your wife than if you go to an astrologer. I'm not going to tell you she's pretty. I'm not going to tell you what her talents and skills are. We're not going to learn that stuff. That's different techniques. We're going to learn to see if you have a wife that's going to do what you need her to do in your life or not. Okay? Now to start with that, Venus over here, this is an image of Venus according to Parashara with all the proper adornments and colors. Venus is your wife. Now what does that mean? What is a wife? Well, obviously a great wife, a good wife, a wife you love and want to be with, is something that makes your life so much more richer. It enriches your life. And I wouldn't even say it enriches your life, it fulfills your life. Okay? So men want a woman to be fulfilled. Okay? Men are capable of going and working all day long and sweating in the mines and, dragging a dead caribou behind them for 20 miles and, going to the corporate world and working 70 hours a week. And all that becomes worth it to them if they have the reward of Venus, which means they have the woman to go home to at the end of a day that they want. Okay? And that's exactly what Venus is. Venus in a man's chart is the reward for him having fulfilled his dharma in his past lives. The reward for a man fulfilling his dharma, for fulfilling his responsibilities, and pursuing his inspirations, which eventually lead to greater responsibility and fulfilling those responsibilities, he gets the karmic reward of his ideal woman. Okay? If a man in any way has shirked his dharma, shirked his responsibilities, taken care of his responsibilities dishonestly, taken care of his responsibilities in a haphazard or incomplete fashion, then his reward becomes less or nothing, and that's shown by an afflicted Venus. Okay? So your woman is the reward you get for the fulfillment of your responsibilities and inspirations. Okay? It's just that simple. So, and of course, the deity that presides over Venus is Lakshmi. Lakshmi has the power to give all fulfillment. And she does that to those men who have fulfilled their responsibilities and inspirations. Okay? And inspiration is nothing but the path that leads us to our greater responsibilities. Okay? Alright. So how do we analyze Venus? First of all, we want to analyze Venus in 3 charts. The Rashi chart, the Saptamsa or D7, and the Navamsa or D9. Venus is doing something different in all these charts. The most important are the Saptamsa, the D7, and the Navamsa, the D9. The Rashi chart is not that important, but you want to start by looking at the dignity, or the sign rather, that Venus is in these charts. Okay? In the Rashi chart, if Venus is in a good dignity, then you get a woman who in general will support your path in life. The direction you're going in life, she'll be supportive of that. She'll be supportive of you as an individual with your individual needs. Okay? But you can take care of all those things in the Rashi chart yourself. You don't need your woman to help you with all that stuff. You don't need your woman to make you a good person. You can be a good person by yourself. You don't need your woman to make you a great person and a famous person. But if Venus is really strong in the Rashi chart, your woman might make you more famous. Okay? And if Venus, is in bad dignity, and I'll define dignity in a minute, in bad condition in the Rashi chart, you might have a woman that somehow detracts from your fame. But none of that's going to really matter. You have the ability to do all that yourself. Okay? So Venus's condition in the Rashi, as far as the sign it's in, is not critical. Where it becomes critical is in the Saptamsa and the Navamsa, especially the Navamsa, so we're going to start there. Okay. The Navamsa is a chart of the ashram that you're in. And you have to commit to the ashram, whether you commit to the brahmachari ashram of perfecting yourself through some skill, intelligence, or ability, or whether you're in a householder ashram of being married and living for a partnership and raising children as part of that partnership perhaps, or if you're in the ashram of a monastic where you are just focused on your spiritual development at the exclusion of all else. Those are your 3 paths. In the Navamsa, Venus represents your commitment to that path. And where does commitment come from? Commitment comes from knowing that, okay, this is worth doing for me. And everything I do requires a sacrifice of something else. But I'm willing to make that sacrifice because it's worth it to me. And Venus gives us that. So in the Navamsa, Venus is good. Person goes, I want to really devote myself to studying this, and I'm not going to let distractions get in the way of my studies or my athletic career or whatever level of perfection a person's trying to embody, whatever they're training or studying to do and be. I'm committed to, and sure, I'll make some sacrifices. I won't go partying on the weekends because I want to commit to this goal. And I won't do this because I want to commit to this goal. A nice Venus helps a man commit to that in your Navamsa. It's the most important planet in the Navamsa. And the commitment is strong because a person understands the fulfillment I'll get from this commitment, from committing to this ashram, whether brahmachari, student ashram, training ashram, or marriage ashram, or renunciate ashram, that the fulfillment I get from this is worth any sacrifices or any things I say no to as a result of pursuing this. Okay? And that's what the Navamsa is about, is what it anchors us on that path that we choose, whichever of the 3 paths it is, and makes us committed to it. Venus in the Navamsa, if in good shape, also if we choose the marriage ashram, gives us a woman that one can commit to, and also one who commits fully to that same path. Okay? Because when you enter a path, the path becomes greater than you. That's the whole purpose of a path, is to have something in your life greater than you. When a person becomes a true student of something, and like we're students of astrology, astrology is a greater thing than any one of us as an individual. Okay? the true student of astrology finds comfort in the fact that there's something greater than him to explore and devote oneself to. Because really it's no fun to be devoted to your little ego. Devoting your life to your own egocentric desires is a really unhappy way to live. We feel better when we devote ourselves to something greater than ourselves. And that's what the Navamsa helps us do by selecting some path. Okay? If a person's a true athlete, the sport, is more important than him in the sport. So he's not going to cheat, he's not going to take drugs, he's going to live a clean life because he's there for the sport, the beauty of the sport, the challenge of the sport. He's not there to gratify his ego and say, hey, look how good I did, everybody. And then, or I need to do good or else, so I'm going to take drugs and cheat and whatever. So, and of course, if you cheat and take drugs and you win the Tour de France, and how good can you really feel about that? Sure, you can say everyone else is doping, and that's true too. Everyone else is doping too, but still, how good can you feel about it? You can't. So you don't get the full fulfillment out of it. So in the Navamsa, Venus lets you not only commit to something fully, it also, if you choose the marriage ashram, it creates a wife that has that equal commitment, where both of you commit to the partnership as being a greater thing than yourself. If there's two people and they get married, they say, oh, a marriage is about me and him, that's wrong. A marriage is about a partnership, a third entity. And that what's good for that entity, that of the partnership, becomes more important than what's good for this person or this person. And to have a good marriage, both people have to commit on that level. That the partnership we're forming is greater importance socially, and socially largely, but also it's just more important than our own individual life. Okay? The social impact as a partnership is more important than my petty desires or your petty desires. And that's a lot of times when you see these great people, like you see the president and his first lady, what they're doing together as a couple is way more important than their needs to have sex and so on. Like Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton, right? Their commitment to their partnership and the social impact that partnership had was more important than the fact that Bill Clinton needed to get laid with Veronica. Okay? So, and his wife understood that. So instead of just saying, you're out of here, Bill, she's like, look, our partnership's bigger than your little sex needs. In the light of our partnership, your sex needs are just a joke. Okay? Their partnership is more important because of the impact it has in the world and society. Okay? And every partnership has it. Every partnership has an impact in the world. Through everyone that those people affect, through the children they're raising if they have children, through the children they may raise someday if they have children in the future. But it's this idea that our partnership and what it's doing in the world is more important than our own little desires. And that creates a partnership that has more purpose. It creates something greater. That attitude creates something greater than oneself. And therefore a path that one can commit to. Okay? And the tricky thing about the partnership path, like all paths, there's a trick of why you're really committing. Okay? So a person can commit to the brahmachari path and try to be a great athlete. Are they doing it because they're devoted to the sport? Or are they devoted to gratifying their ego, right? People who go into that sport with dedication or work hard commitment because they're trying to gratify their ego, they're not truly becoming part of something greater than themselves. They're truly just wanting to prove how great they are. Okay? Similarly, if a person goes to an ashram and commits to living in an ashram because they're running away from life because everyone's so mean to them, they're really not committing to the greatness of a communal living, a greatness of like-minded souls seeking God. They're running away from the pain and miseries and hardships of the world and trying to find an easy way out. And then they get to the ashram and they hate it because they find out it's not easy. Same with marriage. People, if they get together, go, oh, I can get married with this person because I'm married for them, now that I'm married to them, I can get this from them, I can have this from them, and they don't get to do this unless I say so, and I can get this. So if you think of it with that attitude, you've got a bad Navamsa, and you're setting yourself up for a relationship failure. Because you're living for yourself in the relationship. And relationships don't work if you live for yourself. You have to live for the relationship. And you don't live for the other person either. A relationship fails if you live for the other person, because then you become a non-entity, the other person becomes what's important. And that's not right either. A relationship is when both people live for the relationship. Okay? And you want a wife who's going to do that too. You want a wife who is living to support the purpose and goals of your ashram. Whatever those purpose and goals are. Whatever it is, that greater thing that you hope to achieve as a long-term goal with each other. Okay? What makes marriage life so hard lots of times is people tend to get married for lots of reasons and not really being clear of the long term. I like you, therefore I want to marry you. Well, that doesn't really work. If we married everyone we liked, we'd be getting married every other day, right? So, we have to have a purpose in mind of the relationship. And a man, who we're talking about here, men's chart, can only be clear on his purpose in a relationship if he's a man that takes responsibility for his life, and if he's a man that knows what he wants in life, and if he's a man who's responsible with getting what he wants in life. When a man does that, he can easily find a woman that works towards his greater sense of purpose. And then he gets that woman, and then they work together as a partner to utilize that purpose. He finds a woman who shares a purpose that they can commit to, a greater purpose. It's unfortunate that most people don't even consider that part. Often people get married and they don't even consider the light of their greater desires and hopes that they can create a greater purpose with. And over time, as a result of that, they grow apart. They drift apart because their purposes are not joined. If you have a great Venus in your chart, you are able to find a woman that complements your purpose. So the relationship becomes an entity of greater purpose. Why? Because it's the same purpose you have as individuals, but now more powerful and better. And sure, because of that, you will have to make some compromises. You know, Hillary Clinton didn't get to where she was because she married a janitor, right? She got to where it was she married someone of mutual purpose. Okay? I don't even know what their Navamsas look like, come to think of it. I'm just using them as an example of this kind of energy. I'm going to have to look after this course. I'm really curious now. Okay? So, and again, that doesn't mean you might not have some problems and differences and difference in desires. But if you have that mutual purpose, which is the guiding light of your relationship to commit to, so where you see every day that this relationship and what it's doing in the world and to my kids is more important than me, then you're able to find satisfaction in the relationship. Because the whole part of the Navamsa is to have something greater than ourselves. And a relationship, if we choose that ashram, can be greater than one's own petty, egocentric needs. Okay? So when Venus is good in the Navamsa, you can get that in a wife. Then there's the Saptamsa, the D7. The Saptamsa has to do with partnership in the sense of co-creating with somebody, having sex with someone, and doing something with somebody that you couldn't do by yourself. Like you can't have kids without your partner, right? There's lots of other things in life that you just wouldn't be doing if you didn't have the partner in your life. And those things are indicated by the Saptamsa. If you got a good Saptamsa, your partner is someone that you end up doing a lot of things with that you would have never done all by yourself. But because they're in your life, you do these extra great things, or special things, or fun things. Okay? If you have a bad Saptamsa, then you end up being with a partner that, even though they're in your life, you don't do anything different than you would do if they were not in your life. Okay? Sure, you might love them, you have fun with them, but do they really make your life different? Are you creating more because they're in your life, or just doing the same thing? And you want to co-create with your partner. That's the whole goal. The Saptamsa is co-creation, which is, symbolized by children, one of the co-creative things a couple can do. But there's so much that a couple can co-create, and it's the Saptamsa that represents those things. So the Navamsa, while it's finding a spouse, a wife, that is supporting your greater vision of the path of your life, and by her having the similar goals, not because she's a lapdog and just follows you, because she also shares that vision and wants that vision the same much you want it. And therefore there's mutual purpose. The Saptamsa is the ability to co-create, okay? And work together, and be efficient together, and be productive together. Whereas the Navamsa is to share the vision and support that vision. So they're very similar, but there's subtle differences, okay? If Venus is, and also the Saptamsa is also the chart of getting what you want from the person, from another person. It's the chart of desire. It belongs to the 7th house, which is a desire house. It's about finding the person that you want to be with, that you're in love with, okay? That you've got the hots for, and all that kind of stuff. The Navamsa is a person that supports your greater goal in life, and so the partnership assists that greater goal, so you can't live without it. But the Saptamsa is getting what you want from that person. So you can have Venus bad in the Saptamsa, and you're with a person that's not what you want the most in a person, but maybe Venus may be good in the Navamsa, so the person has a similar vision of life as you, and as a partnership, you're able to approach that vision of life more efficiently. So you still have a good marriage, but not with someone that you are madly in love with, or want more than life, okay? Or it could go the other way around. You can be with someone that you're madly in love with, that constantly introduces you to new things, and you're doing things you would have never done without her, but your Venus is trashed in your Navamsa, so she doesn't support the greater goal of your life, the greater hopes and dreams that you have. She doesn't anchor you on any path as much. So ideally, you want Venus to be solid in both the Rashi chart and the Navamsa chart, or I'm sorry, the Saptamsa and the Navamsa. And then you not only get a partner that you want more than anything, but you also get a partner that supports the path that you choose. Why? Because it's the same path that she chooses for herself. Okay? And of course, if Venus is bad in both those charts, you're going to be sort of running high and dry. Now sometimes you'll find Venus, say, good in the Saptamsa. So the person has a great relationship, he loves the girl, he's having so much fun. But Venus is bad in the Navamsa, and once they get married, they find out that their paths aren't coming together right, and then it falls apart. Okay? In which case, those people are usually better off without marriage. Not that they won't get married or shouldn't get married, but when they do, it's a sign that things are about to turn for the worse. Okay? Alright. So, how do we judge Venus? That's the question. The first thing we want to do is look at the sign Venus is in the Rashi, the Saptamsa, and the Navamsa. Okay? We want Venus ideally to be awake. And that's an avashta. It's called the Jagrat avashta, which means the awake state. You want your spouse to be awake. And that also means you want to be awake for your wife. You want her to draw your attention, to draw your gaze, so you're focused on her, to love her and cherish her and get all the joy and fulfillment that a woman has to offer by being in a man's life. Okay? You want that Venus awake. Venus is awake when it is in the signs of, actually let me write that up here, in owner exaltation. So Venus is awake in Taurus, Libra, and Pisces. Okay? If Venus is in those signs, your woman is awake and ready for you to give you everything that you deserve, and you're awake and ready and focused on her to get it all. Okay? And it basically means you have a lot of merit of fulfilling your responsibilities to get this thing, to get this woman. If Venus is awake in the Saptamsa, you get a woman you really want, that you're really madly in love with, that you think is the most beautiful thing, that is the only woman you want to have sex with. You know, all that good stuff. who's a person that always inspires you when you just look at her and see her and around her, that you want to try something new, do something new, experience something new, and find fulfillment with. Okay? If Venus is, okay, so that's the awake. In the Navamsa, if Venus is awake, you have a woman who's awake and ready to commit to the relationship, to be there in a greater context of just beyond just her own petty needs and petty desires, but to really be there for a greater purpose. You know, a woman who's ready and right to take life and run with it and make the most of it with you as a, a wife who supports your mutual destinies and mutual goals and mutual hopes, so that the partnership becomes a strength in your life that allows you, both of you, to do all those things more efficiently and better somehow. Okay? A woman who anchors you on your path, that makes you feel like this is direction my life is supposed to go. And she's validating that direction by what she says or what she does or who she is or whatever. Okay? If Venus is awake in the Rashi chart, it means it's a woman whose presence in your life can just kind of help you in all areas of your life. She might not even be related to astrology, but somehow she brings all these clients in. Or somehow she gets you a great job, even though she's not related to your job field. She just has this quality of smoothing the way so whatever goals you have for yourself somehow work together better. Okay? But like I said, it's the Saptamsa and Navamsa that's critical. It's nice if Venus is also good in the Rashi, but it's not important. It's just like a nice little additive, like a little more frosting on the cake. What's critical is Venus in the Saptamsa and the Navamsa. Now, if Venus is not awake, it can be possibly sleeping. And that's when Venus is in an enemy sign or in debilitation. Okay? Now, Venus is sleeping, therefore, in Cancer, which is ruled by its enemy, the moon, by Leo, ruled by its enemy, sun, and by Virgo, its debilitation sign. If Venus is there, it's sleeping, which means you get a woman who's sleeping. And what that means is, maybe it means a woman who is slow and lethargic and not productive, or it can mean a woman that doesn't inspire you to be wide and awake, and a woman who's more boring to you, or you're not totally enthusiastic about, especially in the Saptamsa. In the Saptamsa, that's a chart of, again, wanting to be inspired by a person. When Venus is there, the woman, if it's sleeping here, the woman you're with somehow never fulfills what you really want the woman to give you. You don't ever get your desire fully realized in what you want from the woman. Okay? So you basically, your desire remains unfulfilled. Your desire for happiness and sharing and comfort and sex, that too, doesn't get fulfilled. Okay? So, that's in Cancer, Leo, or Virgo. If Venus is sleeping in the Navamsa, then a man will find it very difficult to commit to any path. Why? Because he's not able to evaluate his choices well. Evaluating choices is understanding that this choice is worth it even though it costs me letting go and losing these other things. And that's what marriage is. The choice to marry this woman costs me the choice of marrying all the other women on the planet. But I think it's the best choice. And I know even though I don't get all the other women on the planet, it's still a good choice. And you make the choice realizing it's the best. Or you join an ashram. You go, there's a million ashrams out there. They all have their good sides. But this is the ashram I'm going to commit to because of this and this reason. So that's how Venus works. But if Venus is sleeping, that choice-creating planet that makes us feel that we're making the choice that offers the greatest fulfillment possible isn't there. And so a person can never commit fully to something, always wondering, was this really what I wanted? Is this really what's going to be fulfilling? And so you won't be committed to your path because you won't be able to see the fulfillment that path is going to give being higher than any other path. And when it comes to marriage, it also means having a woman who doesn't support your vision of where you're going in your life, and who doesn't support where you want to take the partnership because she's either different or doesn't have the ability, she just doesn't have anything to offer the relationship. So for instance, as a simple example, you have the desire for children. She doesn't have the desire, or she has the desire for children, but she can't have children. So now the purpose of your marriage, a big part of it, is not going to be resolved. Okay? Or she may have the desire for children, but the man may not have the desire for children. He wants to maybe focus on career and have a career wife, and go into politics and have the first lady and all that. But she may just want kids. And now we've got a cross purpose. So how can you commit to a relationship if there's nothing mutual to commit to? And that's what happens when there's a bad Venus. You end up marrying someone who, over the long-term goal and purpose of life, you don't have something that you both are committed to. You don't have a mutual sense of purpose that makes the partnership more important than each of your individual egos. So as a result, the individual egos are going to seek fulfillment elsewhere. Okay, they're going to go do their own thing and not focus on the partnership. Okay? Now, anytime Venus is sleeping, which means Cancer, Leo, or Virgo, it can incline a man to have an affair. Because if you're not getting your Venus fulfilled in a relationship, in your marriage or any relationship, another way to not get Venus fulfilled in a relationship is through an affair. See, the problem with an affair is it's not a fulfilling solution. It's still a sleeping Venus dilemma. Meaning that, say you finally find the girl that's the perfect woman for you, and all you want to do is live for her and get to know her and enjoy her and be with her, but you're married or she's married, that ruins it all, right? That's just like another wrench into your, sleeping terrible Venus. But you'll often find that Venus in its positions, especially Virgo, okay, especially in Virgo, inclines towards affairs. If this Venus is sleeping in the Saptamsa, the affair comes because the man does not feel fulfilled with the woman he's with. His desires and his needs for a woman are not fulfilled. Okay? So he seeks that need and fulfillment in another woman, or in another woman eventually, whether he's still with his wife or his girlfriend, or he breaks up with her and finds another one. Either way, he seeks it in another woman. But it's not fulfilled because his Venus sucks, right? So until a period comes where something comes along to fix that Venus, so they go into a dasha that's giving, relationship happiness and partnership happiness that's not related to Venus at all, there's really no chance of them having an ideal relationship. And one of the ways that people try to find fulfillment from this, especially when it's in Virgo, is having an affair. But again, an affair is just another relationship. Even if it's with the perfect woman, that's far from perfect, right? Because it's not something you can connect to. Either she's married or he's married. And that's a major roadblock. That's a sleeping Venus. That's a decision that over the long term is going to prove painful and unfulfilled, especially the more you like the person. So whether Venus being sleeping means an unfulfilled relationship where you're bored and not excited, not inspired by the partner, by your wife, or you're with a woman that you're inspired with, but she's married or something, in the end, you're still a hurting unit. Okay? That's the type of thing that happens when Venus is sleeping in the Saptamsa. Now, Virgo especially inclines to affairs. Okay? Cancer and Leo tend to end relationships before they start a new one more. So Venus sleeping in Cancer or Leo is more inclined to let a relationship fizzle out or end it and then start another new unfulfilling relationship. Although they can incline towards affairs very easily if they've got like 12th house influences, which has to do with hidden things. 12th house is the house of affairs. But Virgo does it the most easily. And I think that's because it's a dual sign. It's a dual sign. It's both fixed and movable. So, as a dual sign, it'll try to do two things at once. So it has, on one hand, the woman that is, they're married to. On the other hand, the mistress. So they got like two different things. And they're totally different women. This woman is like this. and this woman is like. One is fixed, one is movable, or one is movable and one is fixed. And so dual signs incline towards that. So Venus in Virgo does incline towards that. Cancer and Leo usually aren't inclined towards affairs that much. They usually, end things, get ended before new things start, but they can incline towards affairs. But in either case, sleeping Venus always ends up being with someone that either the person or circumstances dictate that you don't get the fulfillment you want from a woman. Okay? Now, in the Navamsa, though, you see, it's funny, I did a class on, I don't want to bring that in. So now Venus in the Navamsa, when it's sleeping, indicates, again, a woman that doesn't further the purpose of life. Okay, and then that woman not furthering the purpose, it's very easy to meet women that further the purpose that aren't available. So Venus sleeping in the Navamsa will also incline to affairs, again, especially in Virgo. Usually in Cancer or Leo, Venus will end a relationship because it's not supporting its greater vision of life, and then start another relationship with a woman that probably is not going to further their vision of life either, unless Venus, unless they're going through a good dasha that allows for that. But if it's in Virgo, it can find itself in a situation where it's married to someone who they're kind of with, but which isn't, doesn't help the greater vision of their life, where they're not in a partnership mode where they're living for the partnership, but in a relationship where they both live for themselves. And as a result, there's that need to, a man has a need, sure, to have a woman who's hot and fun and all that stuff, the Saptamsa woman, that all he can do is think about and all of his desires lie on her and he's inspired by her and he wants to be fulfilled with her. Man wants that Saptamsa part, but he also wants the Navamsa part. He wants that woman to make him a better man. He wants that woman to make him a better person. He wants that woman to make his path a better, more successful path. Okay? And if she can do that too, he's more happy. But if she can't, he's going to want to replace her eventually. He's going to feel like she's a burden to his path and he's going to want to boot her out of there. Or you're going to, if Venus is in Virgo or it's in Cancer and Leo and it's connected to the 12th house, you're going to find a woman come in who can support your greater path, and you're going to want to be with her, and therefore you may start an affair with her because in some ways she has a more similar vision of what she wants to do in a partnership than the woman you're married to. And that still sucks too. Or she might be married, but you share a greater mutual vision that can actually lead up to a great, to a great partnership, except one or both of you is married, and so it can't ever do it. And it's still a sleeping, terrible Venus, which ultimately means a Venus that doesn't give fulfillment. Okay? In the Rashi chart, if Venus is sleeping, it simply shows that the woman won't be really active in making everything in your life better, making, your life in general better. She might be low on energy. She may have some setbacks in her life that cause her to be a burden sometimes, but it's not going to be a big deal. It's not going to change anything that you wouldn't do anyway. Okay? It's in the Saptamsa and the Navamsa, you have to critically look at Venus's sign. Now, if Venus is not sleeping, or sleeping in Cancer, Leo, or Virgo, and it's not wide awake in Taurus, Libra, or Pisces, then Venus is going to be in all the other signs, which is 6 other signs, which is Aries, Gemini, Scorpio, Capricorn, Aquarius, what did I leave here? Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer. Oh, Sagittarius, of course. Okay. Okay, if Venus is any of those signs, then it's sleepy. It's not sleeping, it's sleepy. It's just sort of drowsy. It's not wide awake, but it's not unconscious either. Okay? Taurus, Libra, and Pisces, Venus is wide awake, ready to give the most possible. Cancer, Leo, and Virgo, Venus ain't going to be fulfilling. In Aries, Gemini, Scorpio, Capricorn, Aquarius, and Sag, which are signs of natural neutral or natural friendly planets, Venus is sleepy. It gets 50-50. It's average. It's okay. It's not terrible, but it's not amazing. It's good enough. It's plenty good enough, actually. That will show being with someone that you're happy, if it's in the Saptamsa, in those signs, not being maybe the person you want more than life itself, but a person you want enough that it's certainly worth being with them. A person who offers enough fulfillment that you're glad you're with them. A person that offers you enough that you don't fall out in love with other women. Okay? You get enough fulfillment. You've got enough merit from achieving your dharma and responsibilities that you get a woman that's satisfactory. Okay? If Venus is in these signs in the Navamsa, you get a woman who maybe is not gung-ho and sharing the mutual purpose, where you're marching towards a mutual partnership and everything is all about the partnership, but where enough of it is, and enough of what she is and what she does supports the greater direction and goals of your life, that you feel like she's a good marital partner. Sure, she's not doing it full time, she's not a politician and you're a politician, but what she does adds enough that it helps. Maybe you're a politician and she's just a great cook. So she creates these beautiful dinners, and she doesn't care about politics, but she loves making these great dinners, and all these people come, and during these dinners all these amazing business deals and bribes take place, and it furthers your political career. So you're going to be so happy and say, oh, that was an awesome dinner. I just got 20 million from General Motors. Where do you want to go on vacation? Okay. And so you can be really happy with her, even though she doesn't share the same vision. She still somehow assists it. Okay? And that's great. That's a good marriage. Okay? A lot of people would kill just to have that good. So she assists you, though she's not sharing the exact same vision, but you're mutually complementary in achieving what life goals you want. And being together does assist them, whether maybe indirectly, but it does assist your greater sense of purpose. So it's worth doing things for the relationship and sacrificing all your egocentric needs for the partnership, and therefore being devoted to the marriage ashram, because you see that it's making your life better. Okay? Not as good as if it was in Taurus, Libra, or Pisces, but good enough to be worth it. Okay? All right. Now, after we've seen those dignities in those charts, oh yeah, what about Venus in the Rashi chart in any of these middling dignities? Well, in that case, your wife is of average benefit to you. She doesn't make your life completely totally better on all accounts, but, she makes a difference good enough that it's an extra bit of reward. And she's certainly not going to be a drain or a burden in your life. Okay? Now, after that, we also need to look at the planets influencing Venus. And that's really, really important, because all this can change depending on the planets that are influencing Venus. Okay? So, first of all, if Venus is influenced, and only look for these influences in the Rashi chart, and then consider them in the Saptamsa and the Navamsa. So if I say Venus in the Navamsa is in Virgo, that's going to hurt Venus. But if I see one of these planets in the Rashi helping Venus, it's helping Venus. And it's going to make Venus better, even though it's bad in the Navamsa dignity. Okay? Now, first of all, if you see Venus sleeping in Cancer, Leo, or Virgo in the Saptamsa or Navamsa, give it minus 60 points. Okay? Meaning that's as bad as a planet can get. Negative 60. If it's bad in both the Saptamsa and Navamsa, give it minus 120. If it's minus 60 in the Saptamsa and good but awake in the Navamsa, then you give it 60 for the Navamsa. Okay, so if it's awake in one of those bargains, you give it 60 positive points. If it's in one of those other signs, you give it 30 positive points, which is half as good as being in awake state. Okay? Now, but you still want to analyze the Vargas independently. You want to say, oh, Venus is good in the Navamsa and bad in the Saptamsa. That means it doesn't equal out. It means that the Saptamsa sucks and the Navamsa is great. Okay, so you got one really good thing, but one area of life that's really bad. Okay? So, do that first, and then look at the planets influencing. Venus has two friends, Mercury and Saturn. The best thing for Venus to help get your Venus out of trouble and to make it good, even if it's not in trouble, is Mercury. If Mercury is conjunct Venus, give Venus an extra 60 points. Okay? And so if Venus is debilitated in Navamsa, you lose 60, but being conjunct with Mercury, you're going to add 60, and you get a better chance of having a fulfillment with a wife. Okay? Now, the other friend Venus has is Saturn. But Saturn's an enemy to Venus. No, he's not. Sorry, what am I thinking? Saturn's a friend to Venus. However, if any planet Saturn conjuncts, even if he conjuncts a planet he's a friend to, he still hurts it. Saturn is like a friend who's really sick. Okay? If he's your friend and he gets too close to you, you might catch a disease. But if he's your friend and far away, he can still fax you things and email things that can really help you. Right? So that's how Saturn is. He's a good friend when he's far away. But when he's in the same house of Venus, he's going to make Venus get starved and ill. He's going to drain Venus. So if Venus is with Saturn, even though Saturn's a friend to Venus, you subtract 60 points. Okay? Even though he's a friend. Now, Mercury and Saturn are both friends to Venus though. Which means via aspect, they will always help you get a better wife and have a better marriage if they aspect Venus. Okay? Mercury will do it when it's conjunct Venus too. Saturn won't when it's conjunct. It'll hurt Venus. But if it aspects Venus, it'll give you a better wife. And it'll make you more appreciative of the wife you have too. So when you look at the aspects, don't just do what they call full aspects. So say that I've got Venus up here in Aries and Saturn over here in Libra. Don't just say, oh, that's an aspect. Well, Saturn's going to aspect if it's in Scorpio too. And it's going to aspect in Sagittarius. And it's going to aspect in Cap. And it's going to aspect from Aquarius. It probably won't aspect from Pisces. And it probably won't aspect from Taurus. But all these other signs, it'll aspect from. And the way you have to do this is you have to calculate the exact aspect, which is given by Parashar by a value of 0 to 60 points. You want to calculate that exact aspect. In the chart calculator at vaultoftheheavens.com, you can go get your chart and it'll have an aspects grid. And in that aspects grid, you'll see the planets along the top that are getting aspected, the planets doing the aspecting down the side. So you just go to Venus, and you go to Saturn. Oh, Saturn's got 30 points. That means Saturn's aspecting the 30 points. And since he's a friend, it's going to boost my Venus. And Mercury, another friend, is aspecting Saturn to 50 points. Better yet, I'm going to add that to 50 points. Don't even use the full aspects thing and look for the aspects in the chart. Use the calculated aspects, which is based on the exact degree separation between two planets. And then you're going to get the full and actual picture. So look for Saturn aspecting Venus and Mercury aspecting Venus. If they are, Venus just got better. Okay? And add that to Venus. And that's its strength to resist these negative dignities. Okay? And it's its strength to boost these positive dignities. Okay? So you can have Venus who's sleeping in one of these Vargas in Cancer, Leo, or Virgo. And Venus may have some real problems with it. She may be an invalid for crying out loud. But then she may have aspects of friends that still make her invaluable in your life. And that you're really glad that you're with her or something, okay? It'll make up for it. Then Venus has two enemies, the Sun and Moon. If the Sun and Moon are conjunct Venus, subtract 60 points for each of those conjunctions. And again, only look for this conjunction in the Rashi chart. If they're not conjunct, look at their aspect. Look at the aspect from Sun and Moon. If they're aspecting, subtract their aspect strength. And that'll show how much Venus gets hurt and how much worse your spouse is going to be. And then consider that number in light of the dignities. Then Mars is a neutral of Venus. He's not going to change the quality of life you get either way. Okay? He's not going to make your wife a more fulfilling or less fulfilling part of your life. She's not going to make a wife that supports your Dharma more or detracts from it more. Okay? Doesn't matter. Ignore Mars. Okay? Alright. Lucky Mars didn't land on the floor, else I might have trouble. But he landed right where I wanted him in a safe place. Okay. Jupiter. Jupiter's a neutral to Venus. But Jupiter has the unique quality that any planet he conjuncts, he'll help. Okay? So if Jupiter is conjunct Venus, he'll give you a better wife. But if he aspects Venus, he will not give you a better wife. But he won't give you a worse one either. Just ignore it. Okay? So, and if Jupiter is conjunct Venus, add 60 points to your Venus benefit. And then take that in light of the dignities of Venus in the Saptamsa and the Navamsa. Okay? And then you'll have the idea of how much your wife is going to be someone you can get fulfilled with by looking at the Saptamsa. And how much your wife can be a partner, a true partner in your life, and making your goals and purpose in life flourish more greatly by looking at Venus's dignity, or awake, or sleeping, or sleepy state in the Navamsa as well. Okay? Now, these techniques require correct calculations, like I said, and correct aspect calculations. If you're not using the you can use any calculation you want. You can use Lahiri Namsha, Ramana Namsha, Greek zodiac, tropical zodiac, sidereal zodiac, whatever you want. But I'm not going to be responsible for any interpretations you make on your own chart if you don't use my chart calculator and calculate it the way I want to. Okay, the way that I use. Okay? If you ask me a question about your chart, use my chart calculator and ask me questions based on those planetary positions. Don't ask me questions based on the chart you got from another astrologer, because I don't want to be responsible for making a statement about your chart based on what I consider incorrect calculations. Okay? On Vault of the Heavens, there'll be a link that explains my calculations if you want to know more about them. Because when you go there and get your chart calculated, it might look like a whole new you. Okay? Well, before you email me and rip into me and say I'm so pissed at you because you're giving me the wrong chart, go to the link and see why I'm doing it. And then if you don't like it, go tell everyone about that you hate me and that it's a horrible calculation, but still don't waste my time because I'm too busy to write you back if you don't like the calculations I'm using, okay? Try them on your zodiac you use. Try this technique on the zodiac that you're using and the Namsha you're using. And if it works, great. But, honestly, I'm going to expect it to fail. And if you find the technique not working, try the other calculations. Try my calculations on my chart calculator and see if, this explains what my spouse is like. This explains my wife's nature and behavior, why I'm just not feeling the right way about my marriage. Okay? All right. So there you have it. That's how we need to judge Venus. And that's the starting point. We need to see what's the impact your wife is going to have in your life. Your impact of fulfillment, which is the Saptamsa, and the impact she's going to have in your greater life, which is your Navamsa. Okay? If she has a good impact, good. The sooner your 7th house comes together and gets you married, the better. But if she's going to be a bad impact, sure, you might have a 7th house and you might meet a woman who's totally confident and capable and powerful and wealthy and smart and attractive, but not be able to benefit from any of those qualities of her and still live with her as a complete stranger. It happens all the time. You have to start your analysis of your marriage life with Venus, because when it comes down to it, the most critical thing about the woman in your life is the impact she's going to have in your life, right? And that is Venus as her. The planets are the Karakas, the producers of the things in your life. So Venus is your wife producing things in your life. If she's a nice, healthy Venus, she's going to produce nice things in your life. If she's a sleeping, unconscious, and drunk Venus, she's going to produce undesirable things in your life. Okay? Like Venus and Leo, I talk a lot about Virgo, how it can attract affairs, and it can just attract people that you're not interested in as your spouse and partners. Venus or people that you quickly outgrow. That's another problem with Venus. Virgo. Virgo is a prepubescent girl. Venus and Virgo will oftentimes fall in love with women that they grow out of. So they're growing, but the women aren't growing. So eventually, she's no longer a viable partner. That's another thing that happens with Venus and Virgo. Because she stays, essentially, a girl and doesn't mature into the woman that the man needs as he matures. Okay? So you'll see Venus and Virgo people often grow apart from their spouse. Okay, then Venus and Leo will often attract a spouse that's very proud. too proud to provide the fulfillment you need if in the Saptamsa, too proud to sacrifice her egocentric needs to support the greater goals of the partnership. Okay? But pride gets in the way. You get a snobby, arrogant spouse, okay, or a snobby, arrogant lover who, won't be co-creative. She's like, this is what I do and this is what I don't, and I don't co-create. So what's the whole point of being with someone if you're not co-creating, if you're not using that Saptamsa? Okay? When Venus is in Cancer, you usually get a woman who is emotionally withdrawn or overly protected and is emotionally not open to true sharing or open to true love or open to true fulfillment. So she's kind of there in body, but not necessarily there in heart. Okay? And in the Navamsa Venus in Cancer, she's there in body, but she's not there in enthusiasm. She goes through the emotions of supporting your life. So she cooks the great dinner party if you're a politician, but she's not going, oh great, for this party we're going to do all these great things. She's like, sure, I'm cutting the vegetables. And she's just kind of getting through it. You want a woman who's inspired to make your life better. And you don't get that when Venus is in Cancer. Okay? So those are some examples of how you'll find the Venus in these dignities giving you a spouse that is less than desired. And if you got Venus in these dignities, what do? You cut it off? That's certainly one option. You can cut it off and run off to an ashram. But that won't work, especially if Venus is in bad shape in the Navamsa, because with that bad Venus, you will have a hard time committing to an ashram too. What you have to do is you have to improve your Venus. Okay? And how you improve your Venus is by doing what creates the reward of Venus anyway. At the beginning I told you all that Venus is the reward for living a life of responsibility and a life of pursuing one's dharma, or inspiration that arises of one's own nature. If you do those things, you'll get a good spouse. So, if you're not with the woman, or you can't find the woman, or you have bad luck in woman, Match.com ain't going to help. Sexybabes.com is not going to help. Going clubbing is not going to help. It's just going to help you find more of the same stuff that doesn't work for you to come in again. Okay? What you need to do is you need to focus on fulfilling your responsibilities. Along the path of fulfilling your responsibilities, you'll meet the woman, if you achieve the merit and you heal your Venus through fulfilling your responsibilities. Along that path, you'll meet the woman who can fix your Venus, who's better than your Venus. Okay? And you'll come to the time where you can find her. The shortest distance is fulfilling your responsibilities. And the other critical thing that is in line with that is fixate on your inspirations. Don't sit around and go, oh, I just want a woman, so I'm going to go clubbing tonight. Don't do that. Follow your inspirations. Is your inspiration to be a great chess player? Then instead of moping around or going to a club looking for a chick or browsing Match.com or SexyBabe.com, whatever, get down and focus on your chess game. Along the path of you becoming a chess master, you will meet the better woman for you. Or if you want to be an athlete, along the path of being a better athlete, you'll meet her. Or focus on your schoolwork. Along that path, you'll meet her. Because you want to meet a girl on the same path, right? You don't want to go to a girl club and just meet a girl who wandered in off some other path and you wandered in off some other path and your paths are totally different. They just happen to touch bases in that bar for a couple dances and a few beers. No, you want a girl that's walking down the path and you're walking down the path and then you catch up to her. Or she's walking down the path and she catches up to you and you're like, hey babe, and she's like, hey dude, and there you have it. You got a great relationship. So just keep marching down your path. Don't let yourself get distracted. Don't squander your time. Don't waste your life moping over a woman you don't have. Do your duty. Do your responsibility. Follow your inspirations. It's along that path that if you will eventually, who knows how long it'll take, but eventually, this is the fastest way to get there, eventually you will find the woman that complements you, that fulfills your desires, and also complements your greater ambitions in life. And that's the only way you're going to find her. Because the whole reason you've got the trash, shitty Venus is from not doing that in your past lives, from not being responsible. Because your woman is a reward for your responsible nature. You get that woman that you're not happy with and attract the wrong woman because you haven't been following your inspirations. You've been squandering your time and goofing off and going partying instead of becoming the true great person that you are. It's along that path that you meet the woman who will complement that in you. Okay, not along the path down Main Street where all the bars are. Okay? So don't look for a woman, is what I'm saying. Don't look. Don't go hunting. Hunting never works. It's like one of those things. You can't hunt women. Live your life honorably, responsibly, and inspiredly. And keep your eyes open, because along that path, you'll meet the woman oftentimes when you least expect it. Okay, but you're not going to meet her anywhere else. Anywhere else, you're probably just going to waste your time. And so instead of fulfilling your responsibilities and instead of pursuing your inspirations and dharma, which is where you're going to meet the woman, you're goofing off down here. So the Mrs. Right goes walking right by. Okay? And then you're patient and realize that a partnership is one part of life, but there's nothing you can't do without a woman. And you just do the great things until she comes along and you get your reward for a job well done in the shape of a woman that you truly love, that you truly want, that you find true fulfillment with, and who also supports the greater vision that you have in your life. Okay? And you just keep working towards that end. And don't fall off your path. That's the critical thing. If you fall off your path, you'll never find the right woman, no matter how many mantras you do. Okay? That's the quickest way to heal that Venus. And that's hard because, you have to achieve and succeed and anchor yourself on that path, which happens through time. So if your Venus is afflicted, it can be hard and take years and years and years. It's not like just doing your Dharma for 1 or 2 months is normally going to make Mrs. Right pop into your life. Okay? We're talking years sometimes. It may take years to cultivate the merit of a job well done and fulfilling your responsibility before the right woman pops up in your life, okay? But she will if you do those things. So just do them and have faith that you'll heal your Venus and make for a better Venus. Okay, I wanted to talk a little more before I conclude this technique on examining Venus, is the effects of the friends and enemies, and specifically how that's making your Venus better or worse. Okay? So, when Jupiter's with Venus, any planet Jupiter's with, it abundifies. It makes it more fulfilling, more wise, more lovely, whatever. It accentuates its good qualities. That's just the nature of Jupiter. It accentuates the qualities of any planet it's with. So with Jupiter being with Venus, you just get a more Venetian wife, which means you get a more ideal wife. A wife you want more, a wife who's more attractive, a wife who's more self-fulfilled, a wife who's more capable, a wife that's more able. So she's just able to do everything that you want from her and expect from her, just better and more. Okay? It makes her more joyful, and out of that joy she can do more. It makes her wise, and out of that wisdom she can do better in your life. Okay? Now, Mercury influencing Venus, whether conjunct or aspecting them, indicates a wife that will have more charm, be more witty, be more resourceful, have more ideas about things, okay? And basically just be a lot more talented, have so many more facets, so there's so many things she can do that will allow her to just benefit you in all kinds of ways. She could be more informative about things. She'll learn more about things. It'll just make her a much more interesting person, basically. Okay? Then, when Saturn aspects Venus, it helps Venus because it actually will make you be more realistic about what you can expect in a relationship. Going into a relationship with unrealistic expectations will result in disappointment. Saturn aspecting Venus helps a person understand that, oh, this is planet Earth, and this is as much as I can expect. I'm lucky to have this woman. Now, when Saturn conjuncts Venus, it doesn't do that. But when it aspects it, it helps you get that attitude of being happy and appreciative of the woman you have when you look at her in the context of everything. Okay? It'll usually also be a woman who looks at you that way too and is appreciative of her relationship when she considers the reality thing. So Saturn with Venus, aspecting Venus, not with it, but aspecting, helps us see that people aren't perfect, and being accepting of their imperfections and the hardships of life and the imperfections that those hardships cause us to have, and to be okay with that. Okay? And then Saturn with Venus also, because of that, it makes a person able to resist more troubles. It makes a woman able to resist more stress and trouble in the relationships, and you as well. Because you understand it's hard work. You understand it's not just a fantasy of love and walking off into the fairy tale sunset, but relationships are real hard work, and to appreciate that and also put in the hard work that relationships require. It's a good thing when Saturn aspects Venus. It makes you appreciative of what you have, and it's a two-way street. Okay. When Saturn's conjunct Venus, though, it'll indicate that your wife is traumatized, abused, emotionally suffering, unable, disabled, just a really hurt unit. So she usually can't be very beneficial to her own life for some reason, and therefore not in yours either. Okay? Sun with Venus. Well, Sun will never, as an enemy Sun, as an aspect, Sun can maybe aspect Venus a little bit. Okay, like hardly, so little, hardly need to bother with it, because Venus doesn't get far enough from the Sun to get an aspect, a good solid aspect. But Sun can conjunct Venus. And again, whatever the Sun is with, that planet becomes a sacrifice. You have to sacrifice the desires of that planet to achieve the great things you're meant to achieve this lifetime. So when your Sun's with Venus, part of walking your path and living the life you need to be will be that of sacrificing perhaps the woman you really want to be with, or sacrificing some desires you have with your wife or whatever. There'll be an element of sacrifice there that you won't get the full fulfillment that you hope to have from your marriage and that you hope to have with a woman, because you have to sacrifice her. There's an element, there's part of you that has to sacrifice that great desire. Okay? And again, a sacrifice is something that you learn to see what's essential for your life. No, you don't want to give it up, but you know, for the greater destiny of your life and the greater destiny of your spiritual development, you have to sort of make this sacrifice. And so when that time for sacrifice comes, you suffer through it with the greater understanding. And that sacrifice, of course, will come at times when Sun, like Venus-Sun or Sun-Venus periods, tend to be a time when that sacrifice is made. So lots of times I'll see people who, they meet the person that they felt the most love or most desire for in that time, or they broke up with that person in that time, Venus-Sun and Sun-Venus. Okay, when you see a conjunction to the Sun. All right, then there is, I talked about those. Moon's a nasty one. You think, oh, the moon is nice and feminine, stick with Venus and it's even better? You don't want the moon aspecting Venus or conjunct Venus. It's bad news, okay? It's just as bad as any of the other planets that could hurt Venus. But you might think, oh, it's just the moon. How bad can it be? It can be really bad. First of all, if you're the man and you have your Venus influencing moon, conjunct or aspecting it strongly, it means that you're going to have a hard time living for a relationship. To you, from your mindset, a relationship is about you. Or maybe, if you have a fatal attraction, it's about the person you're with. But it's not about the partnership. The moon is the jiva, the ego, the individual self. Influenced with Venus, it wants to make the partnership about itself. And in a man's chart, that means you might make the partnership about her, because the woman in your life also has to do with the moon a little bit. Your feminine side is your moon, and that being with Venus can show your feminine side is manifesting as your Venus very strongly. So maybe a woman who you're just so into that you live for her, or you expect her perhaps to live for you. Either way, you're not living for the partnership. You're living for individual, egocentric needs and desires. And even your desire for her, because maybe you're just so magnetically drawn to her with this combination, it's not about the partnership. It makes, Venus moon makes it about either you or her more than it should be. A good relationship is about the partnership. If it's about the partnership, it can last. If it's a relationship and it's all about her, it's not going to last. And if it's a relationship that's all about you, it ain't going to last. Okay? It's going to be unfulfilling. The partnership needs to be about the partnership. And what does that mean? That means it takes the best parts of both people and synergizes them into something better. And it takes the worst parts of both people and brings those things together and melts them down and nukes them so those worst parts get dissolved. And that's why a good relationship is better than the individual has, because it creates a process where both people become better, okay, than if they were alone. But with the moon there, it's either all about her or all about you, and then you don't have a relationship even, okay? That's everybody, right? 1, 2, Mars, and Mars doesn't count because Mars is a neutral to Venus. Okay, not that Mars being with Venus won't give you a more fiery and athletic wife. It'll do that, but it's not going to affect your wife being a good or bad thing in your life. A woman who fulfills her desires or just gets in the way and frustrates you. Okay, it won't change that. Now, all these things I talked about, of these planetary connections that I talked about real briefly, I talked about in depth on the Interpreting Avashta's videos and audio course, where I talked, literally like 20 minutes on every planetary conjunction. And a lot of this stuff is brought in there on Venus and Jupiter and stuff. But that's a quick breakdown of what to expect, what the benefit or the affliction is from the friend or enemy of Venus, and why it makes you have a relationship with in a healthier, better spouse, or a less healthy and less healthy relationship. Okay? Now that you've learned to judge this important planet that represents your spouse, there's another planet you need to study too. The planet we've just talked about represents half the picture. Okay? The other half of the picture is based on your Dara Karaka. Your Dara Karaka is the producer of your spouse, and it's a Gemini principle where we take the planet that's in the lowest degrees in its sun. And that planet also becomes an indicator of your spouse and the things that your spouse may or may not do in your life. And that becomes more personal. So impersonally, the same for everybody on the planet, Venus is always the wife and Jupiter is always the husband. Okay? And that's because of our similar natures, our gender-dependent nature. All women have a gender-dependent requirement for a husband, and all men have a gender-dependent requirement for a woman, based on Jupiter and Venus. But then as individuals, we all have other requirements for our partner, okay? And that's indicated by the Dara Karaka. So for one person, they might have a sun requirement, another person might have a moon requirement. And then that planet also becomes something that they'll experience as a primary thing with their partner, for better or ill, depending on the condition of that planet. So in the next video, I'm going to cover that. And you want to also look at that video, which is going to be, about the Dara Karaka. So look at that video to make sure that you get the other half of the picture of your chart. Because if your spouse planet is afflicted, but your Dara Karaka, your other spouse planet, is strong, you can still have a decent marriage, a decent relationship. So you have to look at both. Okay, so I'm going to get going with that next video so you can watch that too. Thank you.